Seeing as we're all, I will call the regular meeting of September, or sorry, it's not September yet.
No.
August 9th, 2023 to order, and ask for roll call, please.
Councilmember Scrambley.
Here.
Kroger. Here. Lincoln. Here. Schuyler.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Mayor Tim Meyer.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. Thank you. That brings us to additions and deletions to the agenda. Do we have any?
I have an addition. I think just at the end of policy matters, we have a special event application for use of the right of way for a electric vehicle ride drive demonstration. And you should have all received that. I say good copy of that.
Yeah. Everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right, then that takes us on to adopt the consent calendar. Anything on there anybody wants to pull off, or is there a motion approved?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Russ, second by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. This brings us to public comments. Establish time on the agenda for anyone to address the council on something not otherwise on the agenda. Ruth.
Hey there, Ruth Stewart, live at 641 Charles. I've got two items that I'd like to bring up, not necessarily for discussion tonight, but to sort of put in your brain as future items. Two things I've been thinking about, and one is when we went through the master planning for Heritage Park, there was talk about building a new community center down there. And as I've had time to, or a new visitor center, my understanding was it was included community center as well. Okay, well, then this may be a moot point, but I think that it would be a better spot for town halls and remodeling this back into a more user-oriented community center. I know you guys are kind of outgrowing town halls. Sometimes here this space gets used for a lot of meetings, but I think preserving the indoor, outdoor, and attachment to the park. So for future thoughts about community center.
Okay.
My second thing then is I think that it would be a decent time to revisit the idea of trying to encourage a larger grocery store here in the town. It's been quite a while since we went through that, and I think we talk a lot about affordable housing here in the area, but there is more to the cost of living than just affordable housing, and I feel like groceries would be another really key aspect that we could bring to this county. And the reason I'm bringing it up now is both just the general cost of living here, as well as it seems that some of the best land for that would be something near the intersection with 62 and 550. And I know that there's a lot of ongoing development and looking at what's going on down there. And this is something that's going to take a few years to discuss, try to attract a business, get built, all of that. So I'd just like to sort of put that on the radar as something we ought to be perhaps thinking about. Thanks,
Ruth. That's a really good point. I've had people tell me recently that they consider Ridgway a food desert because of how expensive our
I recently witnessed a couple of Airbnbers have been clearly sent to the grocery store, chanting coming into the house, more things for $50, more things for $50.
And I think as an added bonus, having a large grocery store, which would probably pull in a lot of purchasing from the area, would be a huge tax revenue, sales tax for the area as well. So, which cannot keep up. Their stores shelves are half empty half the time.
Right. No, good point. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruth.
Anyone else? Okay, that takes us on to public requests and presentations. And first off, I'm very excited to read a proclamation honoring Mike Jenkins for his years of service to the town of Ridgway. Whereas Mike Jenkins has served the town of Ridgway as a member of the Public Works Department since April 13th, 1992. And whereas Mike's 31 years of service have been marked by exemplary dedication to the interest of the community and service to citizens. And whereas his colleagues know him as a steady, dependable coworker who takes pride in his work and in this community, and who is always ready to lend support or a helping hand when needed. And whereas he has distinguished himself as a hardworking and dedicated public servant at all times, committed to helping his community, and has provided invaluable leadership and guidance on many significant public projects. And whereas in his desire to excel in proficiency in the operation of heavy equipment, he participated in and placed at the top of numerous competitions throughout the years. Plaques on the table here demonstrate that, by the way. Bring 9 top titled awards back to Town Hall. And whereas Mike's dedication and integrity are his trademarks, which will fondly be remembered by the citizens of Ridgway. And whereas through Mike's remarkable resolve and resiliency, the town of Ridgway has been in good hands with Mike tirelessly serving its citizens, visitors, and business owners. Now, therefore, it is proclaimed by the town council of the town of Ridgway, Colorado, as follows. Section 1, the town of Ridgway hereby expresses its sincere appreciation to Mike Jenkins for his dedicated work and tireless efforts in assisting in all aspects within the Ridgway Public Works Department. Section 2, in recognition of his many achievements, we extend our gratitude and appreciation to Mike for his many years of exemplary service in our Public Works Department, and we congratulate him for a job well done and wish him continued success and happiness as he retires. Section 3, by virtue of Mike's community involvement, leadership, and dedication, we, the Ridgway Town Council, proclaim August 10th, 2023 as Mike Jenkins Day in the town of Ridgway, Colorado, and urge all Ridgway citizens to congratulate and thank Mike for his years of public service. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, that's only half. There was 14.
Yeah, I urge everybody.
Every time I brought one back, Pam paid them.
So you think she's lost them?
Probably some of the shop. Joanne probably took a few.
They're on eBay.
Anyway, Mike, we can't thank you enough for all your years of service. It's been
My
great.
pleasure.
I'm sad to see you go, but we wish you all the best in your retirement. What's retirement can be like for you? Just more work, right?
Well, I just bought a new excavator.
Look at Kendra.
Guess he digging dirt.
Yeah, exactly. Got to scratch the dirt.
Yeah.
Call it where you dig.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I know that. Well,
He probably knows that better than anyone. Well, like I say, it's so great to have you here to celebrate you. And we have a big party coming up August the 24th. Celebrate you up at Lake O. That's gonna be really fun. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
We have a little slide presentation.
And I put together a little slideshow.
Okay, cool.
Fairly short, just bear with us. No music, so.
No music. What were you thinking?
You could clap.
Thanks.
I remember that one.
I arrested Greg that day.
Wrestled him?
No, I arrested him. He was a cop that, he was dressed as a cop. I turned around.
Look at that purple crown. Driving the backhoe in costume.
Kids got a kick out of it.
How's that?
The backhoe is the attraction with all young kids.
Yeah. You said fun looking guy in the back.
Puppies, always puppies.
Babies.
Man, you love the colored hair.
Man of many hats.
That's right. I remember that one too. That's the old bank.
Jen was with me.
No way, that was me, that's my bathtub, yes.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, came out of Beaumont, you helped me move it, I bought it at the store, yeah.
She was so.
And that's for you, Mike, that's back, about you. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
We're gonna
Mike.
miss you.
I don't know what we're gonna do next year. All right, well, looking forward to the 24th.
Yes.
You want to say a few words? I know you're a man of few words, so.
Yeah. No, it was my pleasure. This was a great career. And I have, it may not look like much has changed in this little town, but believe me, a lot of change. And a lot of things that most people don't know that's buried and underground. You know, we've done over the years and stuff, it's just like. There's huge change and hopefully it just continues getting better and better.
Well, thank you. Thanks again.
Joanne, do you have anything you want to say tonight?
It's just been a pleasure working with them over the last year and a half. It's really taken on some of the more difficult work we've been doing. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I didn't have that.
And I'm gonna correct.
That's okay, that's how.
It wasn't 31 years, it's 31 and a half.
Excuse me.
And this last half
31.5.
with what she's talking about has been like.
I can imagine.
With the construction. we've
Yeah.
got going.
Some of these big projects,
Oh, my.
the inspections and all that,
It's 378 months.
Well, again,
Well, anyway,
we appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna. All right, let you back. We're on you. That was good.
All right, well, that takes us to item number 6, which is an update from Erie County Public Health. Tanner Kingery is here to give us an update. Director, thanks, Tanner. Tanner. Your mouth's not working today.
That's okay. Gosh, hard to follow.
Got back to follow, right?
But from someone who does a lot of their work behind the scenes too, thanks Mike for all you do. Put a few slides together for a public health update. Want to touch on the food outbreak that we experienced. Talk a little bit about vaccines. Talk a little bit about what we have coming up at public health and what we're doing right now. As the public health director for the county, I represent Ridgway and Uray and the whole county, so I want to be able to provide these updates to you guys as stakeholders and just be a familiar face like always. So starting off with the cyclospora outbreak. Cyclospora is a parasite that usually lives on leafy greens or food grown in the ground usually. So we had an outbreak at Taco Del Mar with 139 out of 151 cases that were interviewed reported eating there between the dates of May 15th and June 23rd, with meal dates ranging from May the 3rd to June the 10th. And there has been about 151 cases identified on the whole western slope. So it's not just 151 people who live in Uray County, it's a lot of people throughout the western slope, even other states. The CDC and the FDA are working on this too, so it's gone pretty high. And they're potentially looking at right now a multi-state outbreak. So roping in Utah and Wyoming and Colorado with this outbreak is what we're looking at. So certainly, I just want to reiterate, it's usually not the case that there was any bad food handling practices or things going on at the restaurant. It's more of a case where the product that they ordered and was delivered to them was bad. So I just want folks to keep that in mind. What we did with the restaurant was looked at their menu, looked at their recipes, trying to figure out what food item is in what menu item. And a lot of times we see with these type of like Mexican restaurants is a lot of food items are in everything. Like everything is in everything. So it really makes it hard to parse out what caused what. So it makes it a little bit difficult, and that's why we haven't, well, I say we, but FDA has not found the specific food item that is causing this outbreak. We took about 8 different food items from the restaurant and sent them to FDA, and they've identified one that they suspect right now. It's a leafy green. So we still have to find out when FDA comes to a conclusion, if they come to a conclusion, what that food item might be. And once we find that out, we'll communicate that for sure. But the restaurant switched out all their food, got whole new food in there. They cleaned all their containers, and we haven't had any new cases since we did that whole switching of food, cleaning and everything. So that seemed to do the trick. So is there any questions on that? I should say the state health department, they called me and they said, hey, we're seeing a lot of these cases around your region. We're starting to identify a common place, a common restaurant. Can we take this investigation and be in charge of it, run it? And that's usually how it works. We don't have a food program. The state health department does all our restaurant inspection in the whole county. So I was like, yes, please, just let me know how I can help. You know, I can be boots on the ground and go collect samples or talk to people, do interviews. So that's kind of how the relationship has worked, is the state health department is contacting these 151 people and getting their food history and trying to go through, a history of where they've eaten, what they might have eaten, and to try to get to the bottom of this. So I honestly think the communication wasn't that great to the public. And part of that was just the disconnect between the state leading the investigation and leading the communications and what we can release as the locals. So I'm actually going to work with the state to see how we can make communications better, because I really feel like we could have done a lot better keeping the public aware of what's going on. Because the rumor mill was already starting before there was an outbreak defined. You know, we were hearing, hey, I heard some people are sick. Are you hearing anything? And oh, I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything. So people were already starting to talk amongst themselves before we even identified an outbreak. So, and that's sometimes how things happen. But all that to say, I think we could have done a better job of communications, and I have some ideas on how we could do that better in the future. So, any questions on Cyclone?
Yeah, I have a question, a couple. I know that NAR is being sued, I understand, by a couple of people. From what I understand, and it just really seems so unfair that it's not the kind of thing that they necessarily could have even done anything to prevent. And while they may be the only vendor that ended up with this particular whatever product it was that was infected or contaminated, is there anything the health? I mean, I feel like the articles coming from the state health department were misleading, because they put NAR in the headline, and then in the body of the article they said, well, it wasn't really their fault. So it was a really a bad combination as far as PR goes. I think NAR will survive this, and I hope that whatever lawsuit stuff that is going on, they can come out of. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I tried to make it really clear that when they were drafting the press release, I said, you have to make it really clear that this is not the restaurant's fault, as far as we know, as far as we could tell. I didn't have a lot of control over they have a whole communications team that gets vetted up and down the chain. But yeah, that's something I was concerned about when the messaging was coming out, that we need to make this very clear that, I mean, Joe has worked with us like so well. Like, he gave us his whole recipe book. He worked with us anytime we got a hold of him. He was open to helping. He wasn't trying to hide anything, which is really helpful. So for them to catch flack for being helpful, it's really, it's tough, tough thing for me to swallow. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, if the food's already gone, are we causing more damage to the restaurant? I mean, we need to let the public know what's going on. If someone has a compromised immune system, they might not want to go eat there while this outbreak is going on, right? So we need to make people aware that there's an outbreak going on. Even though the food that was infected was probably already gone. So anyway, it's a tough situation for the restaurant, no doubt, especially when they've been super helpful and very forthcoming. But I think my role could be just keep communicating to the public that this was more than likely not a fault of the restaurant with food handling. So yes.
And to that point, you said, was it CDC or FDA or both that are looking to different states as well?
Both. They're all working together.
Okay, and have they identified any other restaurants that were purveying the same thing? Whatever that same thing was. I mean, were there cases that are showing up where somebody wasn't infected by Taco del Nar?
Yes, in different states for sure.
Okay.
That's why we think they're probably getting their food from the same distributor. So yeah, we are seeing people who are getting cyclospora, but not necessarily from the restaurant. Some people don't remember. There's like 5 people who they lost to follow up. They just stopped answering their phone or stopped communicating. But I think FDA will try to get to the bottom of it as best they can. All the samples that most of the samples we sent them, I think, all the samples we sent them were negative for cyclospora, indicating that that food is already gone. You know, it's already, especially leafy greens, those don't stay on the shelf very long.
Right.
Those usually come and go pretty quick. So there's still a lot we don't know just because the investigation is still ongoing. And the state's leading it. I get an update every Friday. I get an email with how many case counts they're at, the meal date ranges. So I'll keep communicating, you know, every Friday, best I can on what's going on. But I think we're through it. The worst of it, it's pretty much through it, to be honest. So anyway, more questions on that one?
Do you have
Sure.
any control over the suing? Is there not a better case to be made for potentially suing the distributor or like those practices? Because it just seems kind of silly to me to have someone sue a restaurant who got a shipment from whatever provider and
Yeah, there's not a lot.
against that.
I'm not a huge role that we have when it comes to the legal side of it. I mean, in my mind, I don't know how far does it go? Because the restaurant can sue their distributor, and then how far does the suing go? And it's kind of like those ambulance chasers, like people are chasing food outbreaks to sue people all the time. So people latch on to food outbreaks, and there's even like food outbreak lawyers, you know. So it's kind of an industry that people take advantage of sometimes.
Interesting.
But that's sort of why I asked you, trying to get the nuts and bolts on the out-of-state stuff to push it back on, to get a better understanding of as to whether the distributors are going to be held liable. And I mean, to that point, 5 minutes after I read the article for the first time on
Yep.
social media, of course, it popped up on social media of the lawyers looking for people. I mean, ambulance chasers are fast.
Can we say it's segments of the industry?
Yeah. I wasn't, oh, I didn't make eye contact with you.
No, but he said the industry.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
Just as in terms of terminology, I know that the investigation into the outbreak is ongoing. You know, and we're saying we're seeing negative testing here, but is the outbreak in general in the Mountain considered ongoing, or is it like we're just at an investigation point and it happened and is it continuing to happen?
I think it's gonna stay open until cases stop coming in.
But they're,
Last-
those date ranges haven't shifted.
They've shifted like a day or two from week to week. Last week it was 150, now it's 151, so it's maybe like 1 a week. Whereas it was like 10 a week for a while, so it's certainly towards the tail end. And yeah, the date range have changed from like May 14th to May 15th or something like that. It's very minute changes.
You know, I just, as you were talking, you know, people with compromised immune systems and they may not want to eat there. Well, like this indicates that we're really not
We're past
seeing
that point.
new cases happening now.
Yeah, when we were in the thick of it,
Right,
we want to let the public know, so that way, if someone,
right.
you know, has a compromised system, that they can make a decision to maybe not go there that day.
Right.
But as far as going there now, yeah, I would feel completely in with going there now. But the investigation is still ongoing, just because cases are still coming in from other states, and it's gonna be a multi-state outbreak, they're gonna incorporate all of that, so.
Anybody else have questions about that? Okay,
Okay, COVID vaccines, there is a new formula coming out this fall. The last round was that bivalent booster that we've talked about a lot, and the bivalent means 2 strains. This is back to the monovalent strain. So this new COVID shot is going to be targeting the most newest Omicron strain that's circulating. So we're back to the monovalent, and that should be coming out in September. Pfizer, Moderna, and Novavax are all working on this new formula. And we're working with CDPHE to try to keep not necessarily the bus program going, but they're kind of scaling it down to a van program. So we're going to try to have a van come in October, hopefully, to start the first round of flu shots and flu season. But the vans are gonna have COVID and flu and maybe RSV. I'm trying to push for them to carry RSV and maybe shingles. But in addition to the van program, we're still gonna be doing vaccines at public health. The buses are just gonna be a nice supplement where we can do appointments at the office during the week and maybe on the weekend, we can have a van come. That way people have an option on the weekend if they can't go to our office during the week.
Is this considered a booster now, or has it been?
This is kind of the term booster is kind of being thrown away. It's just gonna be your normal every year. Kind of like a flu shot.
Like the flu shot, yeah.
So they're kind of getting away from calling them boosters. It's just the newest shot, I guess.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I think the key is gonna be, the difference is gonna be this year that it's not free. The COVID vaccine is not free, paid for by the federal government anymore. So we have to purchase it from our budget. So it's not gonna be free to come get the shot with us and have it covered by your insurance. We're gonna have to be in network with your insurance. So that's where we always come into the trouble of we're out of network, so then someone gets a bill where they thought it was gonna be free. So we have to tell them, well, if you wanna go to Montrose to the pharmacies, they cover your insurance, you can get it for free there, but you have to get to Montrose. And that's what we're trying to get away from. We wanna serve our citizens that are here. And how can we do that? We're trying to get more contracts with more insurance companies. Some insurance companies don't wanna work with us because we're so small and we only give a couple vaccines. They don't wanna waste their time with us. So we're coming up with some other solutions to try to be in network for more citizens where they can get their vaccines with us and not have to go to Montrose. And it's just one of those problems that we identify the need in the community, so we try to fill it, but it's kind of a lack of healthcare resources in the whole county that not necessarily, I don't necessarily feel like we're providing a subpar service. It's just, there's not a lot of resources around, so we're trying to fill the holes best we can. And sometimes we're out of network for folks and it's just a bummer. Obviously you can pay out of pocket with us if you want, but if you have insurance, you should probably try to use it. So anyway, that's gonna be the difference is people got used to coming to us for free, so.
Did they present you statistics on its efficacy for this?
I have not seen that information yet. I don't know if it's available yet. But that's a good question. I can get that.
Seems some of the older ones that came out with that statistic.
And they haven't really said yet, like 65 and older or 55, and they haven't given clear guidelines yet of what the recommendation is gonna be. So maybe that'll come out with some of the data.
And Tanner, maybe you know, but from what I understood, since they're just changing the strain, they don't have to do the same. Because everything else about the vaccine is the same, your carrier and all of those things. There's not the same level of pre-testing to come out to give you all the data. You're targeting, it's like a flu vaccine, right? We don't have to boot it every year and give you efficacy. We find out the efficacy because it's our best stab of what strain we have.
Yeah.
That was my short retelling of an NPR piece on it.
And a lot of times when we target the variants, there might be a new variant, by the time someone gets the next shot. And that's kind of, we've been chasing our tail a little bit with the vaccine as far as variants go, that's for sure.
What, do you think that the CDPHE vans will be free, the state?
That's a good question. I was talking to my staff about that today. It's like, well, should we just tell people just wait for the vans to come and you get it for free there? Like, that's what we're trying to figure that out right now.
I was trying to figure that same thing out.
Yeah.
It's like,
And even the van program, we don't really know yet, but do you have any dates in mind? We can't guarantee you, but so they're still figuring out the program themselves.
It's always a work in progress, right?
Right. All right, wastewater. Thank you for the town of Ridgway for continuing to sample wastewater for COVID. We do still submit those samples and I still get the data. The data is also available publicly. The city of Ridgway, I do the sampling for them every Tuesday and Thursday. Same process, I'm sure. But the update is the state lab is switching the instruments they use to measure the viral concentration of COVID in the water. So a lot of the data we've been submitting for the last month is not on the public dashboard because of this whole transition. They're mining the data and getting it all cleaned before they post it publicly with this new instrument. So really what I wanted to see was after the 4th of July, what did the wastewater look like? Did we see it spike with all the people in town? Unfortunately, we don't quite know because that data is being processed right now with this new instrument. So all the methodology is changing. So the trends that we've seen, we're almost like starting with a clean slate again. So it's a little frustrating that this change happened right when the 4th of July came and it's the busiest time for the county. But just anecdotally, I do hear people come to the office and ask for home testing still. People are still getting sick. There's just not a lot of testing going on. I see people come pick up tests, but I don't see a lot of reporting. So I know it's still floating around. People are still getting sick. It's just not, we're just not in that crisis stage anymore, thankfully.
I think the wastewater thing is key. I think that's just such a great way to have a heads up on what the viral load is.
And it's such a better indication of transmission in the community rather than counting cases. I mean,
yeah,
all we can count is hospitalizations, and we only had like 10 the whole pandemic. So
right. And so many people don't get tested. They may have had it, but they never get tested. It's like, and I saw something in one of the major newspapers online about how there's a new variant and that there's a tiny spike happening in some places, but there's not a lot of tests out there. You know,
and it's kind of that same old story. Get updated on your vaccines. Stay home when you're sick. Like,
yeah,
that advice hasn't really changed a whole lot. So
and hopefully people are doing that. Yeah.
So the new dashboard should be up no later than early next week. The trends becoming available on the 14th.
Right.
And once again, we're kind of starting with a clean slate as far as looking at trends. So I think the exciting part about wastewater, I don't know if it's at the end, I think it's at, I'll say it, hold on. So this is urea. As you can see, we've been sampling all through July and it's just not there on the public dashboards. But when we were collecting it, it's pretty low for the month of June. And then Ridgway is pretty similar, pretty flat for June, and creeping into July. But I really wanted to see after 4th of July.
That was a funny June spike.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did those aligned? Yeah.
Go back up, Preston, to your egg.
No, they're offset.
Pretty close.
They're close, or I mean, sampling dates are probably different.
Wonder what those do too.
But what's interesting is last year we've seen spikes. You see the top of the scales, 140,000 parts per million. We were seeing in 2 million from Ridgway like a year ago. So we're not even like close to that at all.
I've been hearing about spikes in Denver. Is this a reflection of how outdoors we are in the summer in this area? Like how much outdoor dining, I mean, like, this is the most I've been inside with other people in a really long time. And anyway, it's interesting because I've been hearing, some nurses on the Front Range say, oh, we're seeing a lot more people coming into the ERs, looks like we weren't seeing that in the summer here.
Really not, no.
I wonder if that spike is due to Memorial Day.
But
That one was, yeah. Okay, next.
cool. And this is the exciting part. So coming this fall, we should be able to test for more things than just COVID and water. Flu, common cold, hand, foot, and mouth, and RSV. So this is why I was really excited to get the program, kind of lay the groundwork, because I knew this was coming and we're already set up and ready to go. We just a different test they run when the samples at the lab. We don't do anything different. So looking forward to that. This is Jim. He's in Breckenridge. He's part of the program too.
That's great.
Vaccines, touched on it a little bit, but once again, we're at public health and available to help folks. If we can't help you, we're certainly pointing in the right direction. And we still are the only vaccine for children's provider in the county. And it's a program that we provide vaccines at no cost for children who are uninsured, underinsured, on Medicaid or Medicaid eligible, or Alaska Native and American Indian. So it's a really great program to provide just routine vaccines at no cost to children. And I think that's it.
More questions for Tanner?
Happy to answer.
It is very exciting.
Yeah.
The wastewater thing's very cool. That wastewater treatment thing. is
We got a
very-
big science.
Very.
And with the new wastewater treatment plant being built in Ridgway, I don't know what kind of windows of opportunity might be open with that. I know we're looking at testing the river pre and post, see how much cleaner it is with the new facilities. So CDPHE is doing a study, I'm pretty sure, on that project with the river. So pretty cool.
It's really interesting.
Total left field question on nothing you've talked about here, but West Nile, has that shown up given the wet year and hot summer at all?
There was some West Nile being identified in mosquitoes. I don't think there's been a human case yet.
Collins are spraying.
CPR had a story of somebody died in the state from it sometime.
I think the one
But
closest to
in
us,
Western
Delta is the closest county to us that's identified a case. Most of them are like Boulder. More
Front range, yeah.
Yeah, I asked because I hadn't heard anything even on the news.
We put out a little bit of stuff on Facebook, just information about West Nile, how to protect yourself, steps you can take. There was a gentleman in Montrose that recorded a video, kind of like a testimonial about his experience when he got West Nile. And we reposted that just to try to give a firsthand account of what that man experienced, just as awareness. So we've been putting out some public messaging, but thankfully we haven't seen any
Yeah,
cases.
that's good. Well, Tanner, can't thank you enough for all you do. It's been really great working with you all these years and continuing to do a great job. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. You guys are a great council and have always been supportive, and I couldn't do it without the support. So,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks. All righty, that takes us to we have some policy matters. Item number 7, resolution 2311, submitting to the electorate of the town of Ridgway during the November 7th, 2023 special municipal election to be held with a coordinated election, a question seeking authority to increase the lodging tax, setting about title and content for the ballot issue, and providing other matters related thereto. Question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So it's been quite a road to get here. At this point, staff has done several things. First is a notice of intent, or whatever they do call it, submitted to the county clerk and clerk's office for participation in the November election. A ballot title and content has been crafted for your consideration. Checked it out at last month's meeting, and we're here now to figure out how to proceed. We've started, as far as the language goes, by proposing an increase to the lodging tax rate of 6% at a split of 50-50, 50% to tourism promotion and 50% to affordable housing and childhood care efforts. And we'll show the language on the screen in a second. Well, and that was the third thing. Not only does it address affordable housing, but early childhood care and education as an eligible expenditure in addition to affordable and workforce housing. The language that's in the resolution reflects the suggestions that were provided at the last town council meeting, or at least I think it does. Correct me if I'm wrong. Our legal counsel sent the language to another legal counsel, I think a government finance attorney, I'm not quite sure. He can tell you more about that. And she provided some suggestions to the language, which I'll bring up on a slide and show you. You'll be able to see what the differences are between what's in the memo and what's on the screen. So here tonight, council's asked to provide final direction on the setting of the ballot question language and to consider approving the resolution to formally refer the question to the November 7th coordinated election. I hope that makes sense. I'll bring up the slide, and I think we're happy to answer any questions.
That's one quick question. Without scrolling back to the previous drafts, has it always used the term tourism promotion?
Yes. As far as I know, yes.
I believe so too.
Which is exactly what's stated in the contract that we have with the chamber.
Yes, sir. So the slide on the screen is the recommended modifications based on the outreach that Bo did. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my office worked with by Kim Crawford that does specifically municipal finance and election law. The goal was to just get a second set of eyes to confirm that there aren't any Tabor compliance issues. And then as the council can see from the screen, I would say most of the changes are pretty stylized, to be honest with you.
Why did they change it to 100,000 instead of 110? Is that?
I think that's a typo because this one says 110. This says 110.
Yeah, okay.
And is that number, sorry, this is our last month, is that number then just to fill in, or is that a cap over which we couldn't continue to collect?
It's a cap, so you want to have your best estimate and try to be as close to it, but without it being kind of wildly high.
Right.
If it is it's a cap, so if you do collect more than $100,000 or $110,000, that's a refund of some sort to the voters.
Other questions?
No, we should approve this. We should get this moving forward.
Oh, you look like you have a question.
I just don't understand how we would do a refund, but that's kind of a weeds question.
It's sort of a funny question, because we would refund it to the voters, not to the people who paid it, which makes it kind of a funny.
Yes,
Yeah.
some municipalities do like a refund on utility bills, like a tax-free day, like a no sales tax day. It's a pain in the neck.
Thank you, Tabor, for that.
Love that for us.
Have you received the ones that Polis sent out?
I think so, yeah.
Can we just?
Which we
They're
never,
delayed.
well,
Yeah.
well, some of us only got it because of attempts to decrease inflation, because we didn't make enough to ever get one.
And we could use the money to book another late concert.
You can pay them
I think it's what you're referring to. I didn't get any money from the governor.
So I think the goal is to
Not get there.
proceed with a refund.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool, just wanted to know where that number came from.
Other than that, I feel good about this. I feel like we have
Put a lot of time in.
worked really hard on this, and thank you, Preston, Pam, staff, for helping and doing all of the things, and Bo, sorry.
Again and again
And again,
and again.
again,
Yeah, I think it's time we sign off.
Yeah,
Ask
so
voters what they think.
I'll move to approve resolution number 23-11 without the refund.
No, I would say.
Okay.
With the edits
With,
as discussed.
with the edits as discussed, hereby referring the local lodging tax ballot question to the November 7, 2023 coordinated election.
seconded.
All right, motion made by Russ, seconded by Paul. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to the Prop 123 MOU. Item number 8, review and action on intergovernmental agreement between the town of Ridgway, City of Ray, and Ray County for Proposition 123 affordable housing commitments. Preston?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So there's a lot of information in the memo. I'll try to avoid being redundant. The town submitted a Proposition 123 affordable housing commitment a few weeks back, late July, and it was accepted. So that's great. Now organizations with a project within the town will now be eligible for all the funding opportunities that are available, that have been made available to Prop 123 through the enactment of Prop 123. And that's simply because we've made a commitment to increase our affordable housing stock above our baseline amount. And so the memo goes into more detail on that. I saw Jake Nissan earlier, must have hopped off, but I know the county is working on filing their commitment. I was just exchanging emails with Jake today, and I do believe the city as well. So The legislation says municipalities and counties can enter into written agreements to take partial credit for increases in affordable housing if the sum of the total units credited to the local governments does not exceed the total number of units produced through the collaboration. I'm confused just reading that. I apologize, but the IGA is really intended to establish a regional partnership. Talking with Jake last week, I think it might be the first of its kind in the state. Don't quote me on that. That's what Jake had mentioned to me. Perhaps there are some other agreements that have been enacted just in recent weeks. But it will allow each jurisdiction to receive partial credit toward the respective program requirements. So I attended, Deb Overton attended a joint work session with the county commissioners. The city of Ridgway was present as well. This would have been several weeks back, maybe even a month ago now. And everyone was on board with being collaborative and trying to help each other out with achieving the milestone numbers as part of the community. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks. So I have a few. So is the intent that we would then handle this grant and we need a developer to come in and build the affordable housing? Is that kind of how this would?
No, good question. So essentially they put the onus on municipalities to opt in, and then there's a whole pool of funding programs and opportunities that come through Prop 123 now, whether you're a private market rate developer or a nonprofit developer or a municipality or a county, as long as you're within a jurisdiction that is opted in, you can explore and be eligible for some of these funding streams, depending on what the project is, depending on what you're looking to achieve. So
so we really have to see all the various packages to understand exactly how this can be.
exactly the way it's been sold is the very first step is for a jurisdiction to simply opt in. And
Okay.
there was a lot of effort that was required to actually opt in, and the state did a great job providing it was called the baseline assistance tool in order to help jurisdictions establish their baseline. A lot of different rates, numbers, inflation tables to look at in order to determine that.
So it's a fair amount of work just to come up with the 109 number.
Yeah, but we have some good resources to
Good, good.
over I think it's in the memo. Hopefully it is. If not, I apologize, but over the course of 3 years, this commitment is 3 years. Over the 3 years, town would have to bring to fruition 9 or 10. I think it's 10.
10
affordable units, 3 a year. And then the county will have theirs, the city will have theirs.
So that leads to my question about commercial credit. So it's been great to see that the county, the city have become more aggressive on this. But it sounds like because we're collaborative, if we add 2 units, we don't get the full credit for the 2 units because we're sharing it across the 3 jurisdictions somehow.
I think that's fair to say.
Okay.
Okay, and I have a couple more here. So in item D in the memo, it refers to a reference to expedite approval of affordable housing. So I'm kind of curious what additional workload, if any, that's gonna, I'm sure it will have some, but what is that going to do to staff load? Because I think you've got a fair amount of development on your plate already, so.
That's a great question. I appreciate it. It would do a lot. If you come down to 4, though, the fast track approval, the legislation talks about jurisdictions needing to enact a fast track approval process, something similar to what we've done for Wetterhorn Homes.
Right.
There was some misunderstanding about what that actually needs to be done, the date that needs to be actually on paper, set in stone is November 1 of 2026. So section D, I think you referred to.
Yes, sir.
Kind of talks to that a little bit. And I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, I think a lot of communities around the state, and I know I've reached out personally to lobbyists, and when I had the opportunity when this legislation was going before the legislature about being concerned and express concern about the fast track approval process and what it can lead to the staff and resources, specifically for small communities. And You know, I don't know that that was heard, but I know a lot of folks expressed concerns over that, but for the time being, here in the short term, you don't have to worry about it, although I think we're all proud of what we've been able to achieve with Wetterhorn.
Absolutely.
But it certainly takes its toll. You
Yeah.
can ask Joanne Fagan sitting right here. You can ask Mike Jenkins, who was sitting right here earlier. You can ask Frank Barnes. You can ask anyone. TJ to move that. So I appreciate you recognizing that.
Yeah.
Any of the unspoken for where homes apply to this, since it says from this point through the end of calendar 2023?
That's another great question. Those units would not count towards our stop since they already issued building permit. I can't remember what the threshold is exactly. I do think it's building permit. But I do know that we can't count those. That's what.
Okay, I have another question here on item E there. It seems to be very specific in stating that developments in municipalities need to be located in the territorial boundaries of the municipality. So the question is the comment, unless otherwise agreed upon collaboratively by the involved parties, does that get us around having to build these? Because it sounds like they're pushing us to go to the outside and our master plan is to go in. So.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't read it like that.
What do you say, John? I'm sorry.
I don't read it like,
Yeah, that's not the way I read it. I think we all like, and Jake Neese is now on and I'd like to talk to it, but I think. I don't speak for the county, but they've always recognized that the importance of pushing growth to the municipalities. So
That says within the territorial boundaries, that's within town limits. But because we are also working with the county and the city, if the county somehow builds something outside of the town limits, we get partial credit for that.
There's another comment here where it actually talks about button up to the unincorporated area of the county. So that's where I was looking at the outside of the. See, the third to the last sentence here, only apply to the unincorporated area of the county or the territorial
Right,
boundaries of
so
an
the
individual.
territorial, for us, the territorial boundaries of our municipality are what matter.
Again, but
We're not, there's another part, in fact, in the memo, there's, I don't remember where it was, but the unincorporated portion of the county, only the county is affected by that. So we fall under, it's within our boundaries that it's us.
Understood. Yeah,
just
my understanding of that, probably wrong.
There was-
That it was the outside of our.
No, there was another, I have it in the memo, I don't remember where I read it somewhere.
and
If that's not the case, then disregard.
yeah, thanks for the comment. And this agreement wouldn't impede our ability as a home rule municipality to do things according to our rules, standards, regulations, and our guiding documents like the master plan.
The upshot being that the other IGA that we have in the county and the city of UA would not have to change at all. This functions independently, but can be reviewed over time.
right, exactly.
Cool. No, I'm good.
Anybody else have questions? We're just crossing T's and dotting I's here for the state, so we're in line for this funding, right?
Oh, I do have one question.
Go ahead.
So I know that we require affordable/attainable housing for all builders coming in. That feeds into this, correct? So like.
Well, we don't actually have,
Currently,
It's restricted.
which
Okay,
is not necessarily.
okay.
well, and it's not even necessarily required. In the code right now, the only place it's actually required is in the PUD section that we recently amended, right? We don't have inclusionary zoning requiring a certain percentage of deed restricted. I mean, workforce housing is almost always deed restricted. And we don't require that anywhere except for PUD.
Okay, thank you.
As
I
of right now.
misunderstood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully that's clear as mud.
And then the inclusionary zoning should actually help to address, when we actually get to talking about that, can actually help too.
Absolutely.
And do we have any target on that? Just out of curiosity. Getting in the
Which
weeds
we
here.
can say tomorrow.
Okay,
But
all right,
hopefully soon.
okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I move to approve the intergovernmental agreement between the town of Ridgway, city of Ridgway, and Uri County for Proposition 123 affordable housing communities.
Second.
All right, motion made by Russ, seconded by JT. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to item number 9, review and action on Marshal's office overtime policy. Who's starting out on that one?
We'll kick this one off there and then we can have Shane supplement as we go. So quite a bit of background and supporting information in the memo. We had a chance to delve into it, and we had some conversations as well. In short, section 13B20 of the Fair Labor Standards Act provides an overtime exemption to law enforcement or fire protection employees, a public agency that employs less than 5 employees during the work week in law enforcement or fire protection activities. We recently discovered a period of non-compliance with that provision. There was an article about it in Ray County Plain Dealer last week. A lot of good information in there as well. Town made attempts to find remedies to ensure compliance with that exemption I was just talking about. The Marshal's office has spent a considerable amount of time gathering the data and other information necessary to move forward with the reclassification proposal. And we've also looked at some other alternatives, including talking with the Ray County Sheriff's Office about contracting for coverage, stuff like that, just in an effort to be comprehensive. So to ensure compliance with the Fair Labor Standards Act going forward and to fall in line with a large majority of police departments around the state and even the country probably, staff is recommending that council adopt the Marshal's Office overtime policy that's before you, and that the town waive the overtime exemption and reclassify the deputies within the Marshal's Office to non-exempt eligible for overtime. Hope that makes sense. Happy to answer any questions, and Shane is here to talk to some of the work that he did and answer questions as well.
Thanks, Preston. Is there anything you want to add, Shane?
No.
Okay. Anybody have questions for either Preston or Shane on this? I guess I would throw out that, you know, the article in the paper certainly took me a little by surprise. I wasn't aware that things had been so kind of out of line for so long. And of course, I was sorry to hear that the Marshal's Department had some, you know, staff had some major concerns about how things have been dealt with in recent years. So I think it's really important that we're taking this step. You know, if there's certainly Marshal's Department is critical to the town of Ridgway's health, safety, and welfare, and we want our Marshal's Department to feel recognized and well compensated for the work they do. So I think this is very important. So you guys all have the memo in front of us, including the policy. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, is 10,000 being conservative enough? And we assume we can change that if need be in course mid-year, or should we pad it now and just have enough in reserve?
My take would be it makes sense to have that as a starting point based on just the examples that were given above. And as you say, this is a policy that we're implementing for the first time, and it's going to need to be you know, followed and evaluated over time, and we can always tweak it later. So that seems like a reasonable amount as a starting point.
So we can do a budget modification later if needed.
Sorry?
We can do an override or
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, budget season's coming.
goose is getting fat.
All right, I'm not hearing any other questions or comments.
Motion. I move to adopt the Marshal's Office overtime policy and direct staff to proceed with the reclassification of the deputies within the Marshal's Office to non-exempt eligible for overtime.
Second.
All right, let's just making all the motions tonight. Motion by Russ, seconded by Terry, sorry. And all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So that takes us to the companion item, which is discussion and action regarding changing the 5th deputy position from part-time to full-time.
I'll kick this one off too, and then Shane can tell me if I'm wrong. Or did say anything that's incorrect, but you all are being asked to consider changing the 5th deputy position within the marshal's office from a regular part-time position to a regular full-time position. The part-time deputy position has, so you use the word traditionally, but over time been difficult to fill. We do believe that we would have a greater chance of hiring a full-time deputy rather than a regular part-time deputy, which would alleviate largely our scheduling and shift coverage issues that we talked about, or that we tried to paint the picture for in the memo, and would mitigate potential for burnout among the deputies and marshal. There's some interesting data related to calls for service and self-initiated activity in the memo. I hope you guys had a chance to look that over. This is going back to 2020, I think it is. You'll see that the figures have been climbing steadily. These calls for service and self-initiated activity as well on that chart. But based on the financial, or at least the budget adjustments that would need to be made to accommodate this change, staff does feel comfortable moving forward with the change to this position for a number of reasons, but that's overall. Shane, do you have anything else?
No. I think that covers it pretty good.
This is gonna intersect with the overtime discussion too as well, right? Creating a full-time position would mean more hours as standard with the 5th deputy rather than doing overtime after their part-time.
Yeah, the other thing that it benefits is it puts me in more of an administration position, but also being able to flex to cover a lot of those shifts that we currently can't cover in the overtime, the need for overtime. So this would benefit us in that aspect of, for paid time off, shift changes that we don't expect, those kind of things. I can take those shifts and then flex my time out. And then cover them, like a week vacation or whatever, and not have to use what we would currently use would be the part-time position. If they weren't available, then we would have to split those shifts. Or an officer would be on call for 24 hours, have to work 10 of those hours, not knowing if you worked the right 10 to not get called out afterwards. And so I think, based on this plan, that would give us a good coverage. It'd give us better coverage, more community engagement, we can be more in the schools, that type of thing. That currently if we're short manpower, we just have to fulfill the basic needs in the emergency response. Plus, it also keeps an officer in town more. Staffing, when we have the shortages, we have those split shifts. We can't require people to be here 24 hours a day. So this way it frees up, gives more in town time for those officers.
That's great. Seems like a good move. Yeah. One thing that I actually meant to mention on the previous item, but it fits in here as well, is I was a little surprised to see I think it was in the newspaper article that we don't do timesheets.
Yeah, that was one of the problem areas in figuring, like budgeting for the overtime was, historically, we haven't ever kept timesheets.
I wonder if that's something we want to reconsider as a policy.
Well, we have to now.
Okay. Because of this policy, we have to. Okay, good.
And they would be switched to hourly, so we would have to keep.
Okay, good. It just fits right in with the whole accountability and.
Yeah, and that made it really difficult to kind of get an idea because, we tried to use stats, but they're kind of incomplete because they're subject to human error. And if the information doesn't get entered. So then we're trying to best case guess like our call outs and how much time, but then that all depends on the officer and how much, if they call on duty right as they leave their house, go to the incident,
deal with it and then don't call off till they go home. You know, so a lot of those times were, you know, that'd be 18 minutes. We know an officer with our current staffing living, you know, I'm the closest one and I'm 15 minutes from town. So you knew that wasn't inaccurate. So to get that basis, but if we have the timesheets in, you know, we can track it and then identify if we start getting into issues of too much time, you know, spent on calls or spent, you know, where, you know, maybe an officer would take a discretion and sit for a little while in town working, those kind of things, but we can more manage that with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it makes sense. Any other questions for either Preston or Shane about this?
I have a quick question. Given the rate that we're growing as a town, do you end up predicting when we need to make yet another hire? That a year out, 2 years out, 5 years out?
Well, thinking me and Senior Deputy Hanson have talked quite a bit at length about that. And, you know, I'm figuring, you know, that we wouldn't have to readdress this for at least 2 years. And, you know, once all the housing units are coming in and developed and that kind of stuff, we'll have to probably take a look at it, but I could see, you know, maybe 3 to 5 years before we need to make that move again, potentially. So, because you know, if you look at those stats, there isn't a huge increase, but then they don't tell a real picture because, you know, we might have 5 domestic violence in the 1 year and then none in the next year. So, you know, but we might increase somewhere else. So it's kind of hard to watch our stats. It's not like a large agency like Montrose Police Department can see, you know, there have an increase across the board where we might go down in one and way up in another.
It's just like our schools with our varying class sizes, you know, too small for averages to be perfect.
Yeah. The other thing we're seeing is the time on calls is, you know, we're dealing with, you know, some of the recent mental health issues that have been in the paper and they're incorporating, you know, hours and hours and hours dealing with these situations that, you know, it's hard to project because you don't know. You know, fortunately, this last month, all those have kind of settled down.
We don't.
And so, but that, you know, that's, yeah. You know, this is the closest to what we have. So that's kind of where we, you know, part of it too is figuring because you can't ever project for those kind of things.
That's what, if I'd been asked that, JT, I would have said 25 years. I mean, we've got by the 3 for the longest time, and we're definitely growing more now than we have in a long time, but I can't imagine.
And you came, what, 21 and asked for the 4th deputy, but and then we used the 5th part-time. Or we used multiple part-times with our understanding the part-times didn't fall under the exemptions.
Not knowing if there was just a natural rhythm that every couple of years you need to make a new hire, or if you had a goal to get to 8 or 10 or something like that. But that's all dependent on capacity now.
Personal, you know, I didn't want to go past 3 or 4, you know, but 5 is necessary, you know, and we'll address it.
If I could add, it's a yearly discussion point, for sure. And there's really interesting studies out there from like the chief organization, I can't remember what it's called. There's others too that put out information about recommended officer per capita studies, and it's not uniform, right? It works for some, you know, there's variables you have to take into account. And so it's interesting reading for sure, but it doesn't always fit certain cities and towns. So you always have to take that into account too. But they are out there. Check.
Yeah, because the national average is 1 officer per 1,000 people. But when you break that down, that is 24/7 365 days a year, that you have to, equate having one officer for that 1,000 people in that formula. Well, it doesn't fit with us because, that formula would show 1.5 officers for the town of Ridgway.
That means on any
if you-
given shift, that person's covering what, 4,000 people?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, during the day when we get all the traffic coming through. And then, our concert series, which is doing really well, and this year we covered most of the concerts with 2 officers and the last concert was with 1. We need to have what was approximated at 5,000 people in town. We've, quadrupled our population for that.
I don't think it was,
3 hour.
I don't think it was 5,000. I don't think it was more than 3,500, but we don't know. We're talking about wasted trips.
Yeah, so. That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, that's helpful. Anything else? Somebody want to make a motion?
Move to change the regular part-time deputy position to a regular full-time deputy position effective immediately.
Second. I think Russ Beach is sorry. Terry
I'm not.
made the motion. Russ Beach, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
On both of them.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, that takes us to item number 11, which is the update and discussion regarding the Ridgway Wetterhorn Homes project. We've got a memo from Ross. I don't know if he's online or are you covering him?
Okay, I'll cover it. I'll
Okay.
see Ross online. But he gave you a memo, an update on the home buyer process. There's 3 lots remaining, at least as of Friday. And through mid-August, so August 15, those lots are available to applicants who don't require an exception. After that date, they will become available to applicants who require an exception, and assuming we do get to the 15th, it's not that far away, and one or more of the lots haven't sold. The Ridgway Workforce and Affordable Housing Committee will need to set a meeting to review and take action on any exception applications that are received by IDS. So I'll plan to set, instead of asking you to take your calendars out now, I'll send a little doodle poll once we get past the 15th about setting something in September. So just an update there, but fingers crossed that the homes fly off the shelf here soon to families or individuals that need them. Another update on Wetterhorn, the development team has submitted an application for their final plat. And we anticipate it going before the planning commission later this month, so the 29th. And potentially to the town council shortly after that on September 13th, given the fast track for this project. So that's not set in stone, that's subject to change, but we do have a final plat application from the development team. And Stryker is anticipating completion of construction and certificates of occupancy at some point in October. And, closings and move-ins would take place after that. So that's the update.
With those available units, as we head in towards the latter part of this year, is there a possibility, I guess there is a possibility in the market that there'd be some available going into the next budget year? If these aren't sold?
If they aren't sold, I think we need Paul in here to talk about that. I think there's the funding that's in place for this project kind of complicates everything. I do think they need everything accounted for sooner rather than later. That's a really interesting question, but Paul would need to kind of talk to the ramifications of a unit not being sold in August or September 2023.
I think from my hearing Paul's take on it, that he would be extremely distraught and upset if there were still any of these lots available after January 1st. He needs to turn them over. He needs to get that money to the funders as soon as possible after August 15th.
Well, because they're already moving dirt anyway, so they're trying to get everything.
Now,
That's a
the
lot of cash flow.
other thing that
Understood. It was a leading question. You know where I was going with that, right?
Oh, yeah.
In terms of, town for us to pay attention if there was a unit still available.
Yeah, for the town,
Yeah.
so consider buying that.
Yeah, I figured that's where you're going, and I was gonna bring that up as something to talk about now that we're in the budget cycle, because we could still explore it, making it happen this year, trying to find the money for it. It's a big chunk of money, and certainly would be easy to do, but with all the funding out there, maybe we could do something creative, and I certainly wanted to bring it up.
Is
So,
it possible that we could, depending upon what the status is by the time we get to the retreat, to actually plan for that? And the extension of that question is, could it also apply to the array homes? Could we reserve a spot? Limited to.
So your raise is gonna be the same way as us. It's gonna be limited to your rate initially. So we would be a
For
fallback.
the non-exemption.
Yeah, so we would be an exemption of it.
My point is maybe we can budget for it, depending upon the status.
We're not precluded now evaluating that, but these units are much more stringent than any other unit, right? If we don't, if say the town of Ridgway were to purchase one of these units, and we don't have any employees that fit the mold, fit the criteria to occupy the unit, we would make it available to anybody out there to rent the unit from the town through impact development services. So it's stringent in that regard. We wouldn't have the flexibility to say, to try to rent it to someone.
I was specifically thinking in terms of filling our, our needed capacities and putting a plan along those lines. So just to make sure that it was spoken out loud for Paul and to see if that becomes an option, since it wasn't an option at the get-go.
It's an option.
Oh, it's been an option.
That's an option.
Okay. It was considered during the budget cycle, but never made it. Wasn't identified as a priority, so funding wasn't set aside for it. But if there's a first right of, however it's framed,
Right of
development
refusal.
agreement, something like that, that affords the town that ability. Right?
And to that end, John and I were discussing, and I know it's not on the table today, but I would like to see Uray County residents become an administrative approval if there's open houses in the way that currently the entity purchases can happen. And I'd like to make entity purchases need to come in front of us as a board. So actually flopping those two. So if there's a house available and a Uray, someone who works in Uray, and we don't have qualified applicants in Ridgway, that should be a thing that we don't need to convene as the Ridgway Housing Board, whatever our name is. That should be an administrative approval by Impact Development Services. I would like entities who want to do this to come before us, just because it is so complicated with who qualifies in renting, and I think we were all a little uncomfortable about the entity, or many of us were, about the entity purchase process. So that's something, I don't know, I would like to see us further delve into as in terms of how these get handled.
So we have to make would we have to make a motion that it would be staff's ability to make the exception to
I believe-
allow?
yeah, I believe, sorry, from there, I believe we'd have to meet as the housing committee and change our policy formally by motion in the housing committee.
So, yeah, so a few things would need to happen. So the affordable housing regs and guidelines would need to be amended. Great point. They would need to be amended, and they would need to be signed off on by the Colorado Attorney General's office and DOLA. So there's a whole process.
And I get that it's a whole process, but I think it's
I don't know
right.
that anyone, off the cuff, I doubt anyone would have any issue with what you're doing. But it would just take some time
Yeah.
to do that. Once we get through all this, I think it's totally worthy. I can make a note, talk to Paul. Talk with Paul a little bit at the setting about something like that. And he expressed interest, but as we get past this first phase, we can certainly explore modifying the regs and the guidelines. If that's.
It's not gonna happen before August 15th.
No, but well, and I think, I feel totally confident that if we're assembling as the housing committee, Uray County workers are gonna be very happily looked upon.
Yeah.
I just don't think, I think it's just another barrier to getting local workers into homes. And that way, yeah, they still have to get an exemption, but it's an administrative exemption and they don't have to wait for us to assemble to do that.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And I would like to just absolutely express my discomfort with the entities being able to purchase rather than just Uray County citizen, or not purchase, but rent or be in the.
I am psyched the school's doing one, like that's
Yeah,
what, and I'm like,
that's fantastic.
done.
I just have some hesitancy about.
I thought, am I wrong that there's no distinction between the school district and any other?
No, they're considered an entity purchase. And right now,
They don't have special dispensation as the school district as opposed to the other entity?
No, not that I'm.
But-
So
entities are administrative approval, and I feel like we kind of have it a
Yeah,
little backwards.
that doesn't. seem-
provided they meet the
Yeah,
definition.
provided they, yeah.
And I would also like to change the definition of entity, like the school, the town, the school, county, like my brain is not giving me the other one that I was just thinking of, but those types of things I'm good with, but
I mean, on the other hand, Paul, like, I think having it as something that you can come before us is important.
oh
Because,
gosh, yeah.
if a business is a qualified entity, wants to purchase it and put someone in it because they may not be financially in that place yet, those types of things.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
why
I think it
that's
should come before us
Yeah.
is what I,
So
I just agree.
I guess anyway, what we're saying, Preston, is we have some changes we want to make when this gets to a place where it's stable enough, we can do that.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying it like that. I saw a bunch of nodding heads, I think, on that. And so perhaps I was thinking out loud when we set this exception hearing. In mid-September, we can have a work session item with you all as the Affordable Housing Board. Have Paul Major come in here, us clearly identify, we'll clearly identify the changes for consideration. Work up edits to those regs and guidelines and get it through the process.
Perfect.
Does that sound like a cool plan?
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions or comments on this one? Either from the audience or up here on Zoom? Right. No action needed, right?
No, sir.
All right, that takes us to written and verbal reports.
No,
We have the additional, the reason David Jones is here, yes.
I'll forget it.
You understand that? Yeah,
Y'all are aware of from the Sustainability Advisory Board.
This board, we already in wording, if you state your name and okay.
Sure, thank you. David Jones, Sabata Drive, Ridgway. So I'm on the Sustainability Advisory Board. One thing, our committee is very appreciative of you guys helping us move electrification forward in our region. One of the things that we proposed doing is having a ride and drive event for EV vehicles, and we would have it in the parking lots here. And we initially proposed having it on Friday, 15 September. But I think John and Preston recommended Saturday. We had picked Friday because we thought the town market would bring in folks, but we can advertise. So we're looking at Saturday, 16 September from about 10 to 2. Clear, which is clean energy, something out of Carbondale, will assist us with this. They're going to try to bring in contact vendors and bring in vehicles, but we'll also be looking at the residents who live around here who have an EV and be willing to bring it in and either let people sit in it, take them for a ride, or even let them drive it whatever they're comfortable with. So and there is we do have a waiver that we will have people sign before they get in the vehicles, and yeah, Clear has a waiver. We will amend it to include Ridgway. So any questions I'll have, I know.
Do we have any questions?
Dave, I just wanted to be super clear about it because we discussed it last week at SAB in your absence.
Yeah.
Or we chimed in, but Clear has done this and they have the full architecture to put these events on. We're there as a sustainability advisory board would have a tent and would facilitate it. So the applicant is it us, SAB, or is it?
I think it should be. I personally think that, Clear can assist us.
Yeah.
Clear from the CEO office, and they get money there. They can help us, but I really think it should be our sustainability advisory board doing this. And I know Eco Action Partners will give us assistance, and we may be able to get assistance from other groups, but
You've got something called 4Core on.
yeah, 4Core, we were initially pushed down to them, and they're in Durango, but I guess the CEO office gerrymandered and redistricted. Now our area falls under Carbondale.
Okay, so now we're clear.
Now it's Clear.
Okay. I think it makes sense for the SAB to be the hosting organization.
I just wanted to be clear on that because last week we had found out from Deb and Pam that the application was in. I just didn't, having not seen it until it came in, that it is us as Sustainability Advisory Board.
I think it makes sense to do that.
Agreed, and we obviously decided last week that unanimously everybody wanted to support it and hope the council would as well.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to support it, and I think the reason it's smart to do it on the Saturday is because the Friday, that parking lots are all jammed for attending the market, so it's kind of a conflict. But I understand why you wanted to do it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, so and this, we were having to request a smaller parking lot because of that. This will allow us to use the larger parking lot.
Great.
That'd be nice.
Any other comments or questions from council?
This is good by me. I'll move to approve the application right away.
Anybody else?
Anybody else have comments online or anything?
Secretaries.
Okay, motion made by Terry, seconded by Russ. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passed unanimously. Thank you.
Please come out.
Yeah.
Come take a drive. All right.
Yeah. I've driven a Tesla. That's pretty cool.
Gotta get Shane to come too.
Thanks, Dave.
All right.
Just to be clear, you guys, we will have Sustainability Advisory Board will have a booth there as well. And then also behind that is trying to get other stakeholders as well involved. Everything from local businesses, potential power, alternative energy, people who bikes, et cetera. So
That could be a little kind of hive mind sort of, different things.
and part of our educational component of it from SAB is also to talk about the things that are coming down the pike from the state level in terms of the code issues that we're all going to have to navigate.
Nick and I are gonna be at his sister's wedding, but I would
Skip it.
be, I know, I'm just gonna go. But if you guys would like to borrow either Nick's dirt bike, which is electric, or my e-bike, I would be happy to
I'd love that. Yeah.
let you guys borrow it. So that's stuff.
Right?
Surround. Is it a surround?
His
Segway?
is the Segway Surround, Surround Segway.
Segway bus one.
Yeah, it's a Surround.
That would be awesome.
Sweet. Well,
Cool.
And start a game.
just gonna go.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yep.
Yeah. So now we are moving to written and verbal reports, starting off with item number 12, the town manager report. Thank you for that, Preston. Great turnout at the Athletic Park Master Planning Project. Highlighted on the first page. Anything else you want to highlight?
There is a community meeting tomorrow night related to the Preserve PUD Master Plan Amendment. That's in this room at 6 o'clock, I think it is. Chris Hawkins will be representing that winning group in their quest to amend the future land use map. So that's that. Let's see.
Why have I not heard about that?
This is strictly a public meeting, just
It's a public meeting several months ago,
Posted by them,
hosted by
no,
them.
no formal action from the town, it's just information.
It's all part of the master plan amendment process that
Oh,
was
okay.
adopted several months back. Even before that, there was a joint work session with the county commissioners about preserve and how to move forward. And it was collectively decided that annexation of that small sliver would be a good deal. Well, we needed,
This is to address that.
yes, so.
Okay,
We need an amendment process for our master plan, and they have to go through that process before they can get to the annexation process. It's very cumbersome, to be honest with you, but this is one of the very first steps, is having this public meeting.
okay,
Impetus and the need for this.
okay, gotcha, thank you.
Energy code upgrades, the sustainability advisory boards have a number of conversations about this. It's on our priority list too, but we're working with Kim Wheels at Eco Action Partners. She's on vacation right now, but to put together a timeline, or a schedule related to the adoption of 2021 International Energy Conservation Code and the model electric ready and solar ready code that the state's energy code board put together and that Ken was a part of. And so we're working with her on trying to put that timeline together for public meetings and such. So stay tuned on that. The new split rail fence at Heritage Park just went up yesterday, maybe this morning. I think it looks pretty good. Yeah. The Colorado Main Street program, they're in the process of looking for proposals to provide design services and construction level drawings for our new visitor center. So proposals are due in a few weeks' time. Fingers crossed that we get one or more that are not exorbitant priced. There's a lot more in there, but I'll keep it at that. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions for Preston on his town manager's report? I forgot to look at the joke.
Don't bother.
Oh,
I did giggle.
Thank you.
I did
That's
giggle.
not the worst.
No, that's not by far not the worst. It's not the worst.
Oh, doesn't look.
I still like it.
impressed.
No, I was not impressed by that.
Well, I want to see your joke. Next month, it's on.
Oh,
I, as the
I put that
council-
on myself. Okay, Paul.
I, as a councilwoman,
No.
am absolutely kidding, and I'm not gonna finish that sentence.
All right, well,
He is.
Helen, you reminder. Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
another great town manager's report. Thanks, Preston. So that takes us to the 2023 strategic plan progress report.
Happy to answer any questions about, there's a lot of updates in here. Understand if you haven't had a chance to go line by line, but you all know this is an important document for the town and for staff as we undertake the work, sets our work plan each year. So there's updates on all these items. If you have any questions on any of them, specifically happy to go into more detail. If you haven't had a chance to go through it later, shoot an email, phone call, visit a town hall, happy to talk about any of this.
Could just like send me a mean letter saying that my water usage has gone way up so that I can wave it at my roommate who takes 3 showers a day.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. It takes one in the morning, goes for a run, comes back, takes another shower. Does another workout in the evening, takes another shower.
Why don't you just do the night shift?
Okay, this is TMI.
I was, I'm
I had.
kidding,
one
not kidding.
quick comment here. I was looking on the healthy natural environment section, section 8. We're talking about available education materials and amended landscaping regulations. Was wondering if maybe we should lean on the Water and Land Committee education group to develop a presentation that could be provided to, I know they've done this for the Montrose area, but for HOAs and for real estates, HOA owners and real estate organizations, just as people are coming in here so that they can make them aware. And so there's an education class that they put together, needs some tweaking for this area, but I think we should lean on them and try and get something out of these guys.
Sounds like a great idea. Is that you asked them?
I have not, but I can, or unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend the meeting tomorrow because I'm being fishmonger. But I am fishmonger. But I can go ahead and send a note, or the town can request it as well, I'm sure. So
Yeah, I think you're the rep on the board.
I am the rep.
Yeah, so. Well, I'm just sending a note. I think that's a great idea for their education subcommittee to get a presentation together and do outreach to, like you said, the HOAs, the realtor community, get something set up. The town can certainly be a party to that, the pulse on it. But, yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, have you talked to what's the guy's name? Is Mike. Barry. You haven't talked to Mike Barry about it?
Not
We talked
specific.
today about how that community was floundering.
Yeah.
It's gonna go every other month. So I think reaching out to them and asking them to do something and giving them some purpose.
Yeah, well, I mean, apparently the education committee has actually kind of found their way. The policy committee has not.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of the intent of trying to figure out where they're going right. Just as one other bit of information I got out of that Water and Land Committee, I found interesting was we had a lobbyist attend one of the meetings recently, and apparently there was a law passed in the state here recently that said that we could not limit our town growth based on the fact that we didn't have water. That's a state law.
Where did that come from?
It's a state law.
When?
It just went through in the last session.
And I didn't hear that it was tied to not having water. I heard that this came to have cap like Boulder and Lakewood.
Just a cap on growth.
Yeah, I think that has to do with the governor's effort to impact affordable housing by limiting local municipalities' control to do things like have growth caps. It's a really strange kind of thing coming from the rest of the government.
Yeah, yeah. And not that I was proposing to do that anyway, but we have a limited amount of water and so there's concerns.
Yeah.
That must have been quite a meeting.
She just kind of showed it as what she knew was coming across the plate, so it had already happened.
Law.
Do not off the top of my head.
It was like a big deal.
Putting up that motion versus community value number 5 will manage growth. Item 7.
No, go ahead.
This is the one about the roundabout. Or the long about, as it's referred to. The idea has been plugged. I need to get it on the 10-year regional transportation plan. I'm not positive, but I'm wondering if the 28, 30, 35, 40 people that the Wetterhorn is going to further exasperate the need for that. I don't know if that's the easy path, but I certainly lament every time I come up to this intersection. I'm stuck for 5 minutes waiting for traffic. In the direction, is there any way to expedite that particular objective?
We can, just try to be more annoying to see that and
Can we help you be?
well,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean,
see that right
can we
away.
all just send a letter or to see
Well,
that?
Go on the TPR and.
Yeah. And there's a meeting tomorrow. Plugging it. We can see that's right away. The other thing, property would need to be acquired, I think, in order to accommodate it.
Yeah.
Even,
That's gonna be the biggest stuff, that's the property.
but the wheels have to turn, so to speak. when we get to-
Property, we would need, we,
Right.
Is it premature to discuss this in the budget retreat in terms of if land needs to be acquired, or is it just too early to even be able
Not
to?
necessarily.
No, I think we just need to find a path forward.
Or at least elevate it to a 5-year plan rather than 10-year plan.
Are you either, both you guys going to the TPR meeting tomorrow?
We could invite them to a meeting here and see how long it takes them to get to the traffic light.
I mean, we're at the point where between 4:45 and 6, if you're trying to cross the road, you're turning to turn again, like you're not getting across.
Either that or you're waiting for the tourists to cross the street.
The tourists crossing the street are actually useful because then the cars coming this way stop and you go with them. I don't know if that's legal, Shane, but it's what I have to do.
That's what I do.
Hire somebody.
There was a skid on that as a business over at the Sherburne Night Live, and it was Uber Feats. And so you could call and have somebody
Walk
at a crosswalk, so you could actually get out and cross the street.
That number.
Okay, let's bring it back.
In somewhat seriousness in that comment question. What is the outlook or timeline on North Laura? Connecting, will not connect, will that ever be?
It's gonna be developed a certain ways just because of weather one, but it's only gonna be half width. For the time being, it's gonna be 30 feet right away. There's still enough room for 2 driving lanes. You see,
Between Cora and Otto,
yeah, between Cora and
Correct.
or.
between Charles and
Frederick.
Frederick and Otto, right? And you can see that there's been work done on the rest of Laura all the way out to Railroad. But that's just in the very preliminary stages of coming to planning commission. That'll be like phase 3 of the industrial park.
Well, so that, yeah, that's Ridgway Light Industrial Phase 3.
Yeah.
There's been back and forth between the development team and staff on their engineering plans and I think some stormwater stuff. I can't remember, but their engineering plans, the ball's in their court to resubmit their engineering. But they have their preliminary plat approval subject to conditions. So based on what they want to achieve, they want to be moving more dirt and constructing North Laura Street sooner rather than later. They wanted to do it last summer. Now they want to do it this summer. So Kevin, to answer your question, I think that will start to be built out fairly soon based on how aggressive they are to get their engineering.
Because that will shift patterns. That'll shift drivers' patterns, that'll shift Terry's patterns, all of it.
And that'll.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what that does as far as traffic set. Absolutely.
Might happen sooner than the Oblonga.
You can't get out on Laura either, though. It's not actually gonna fix anything.
that's how I'm.
I mean, it's better, the further this way you go, the better, but it's still not. I live on Laura and I will drive up the hill to get out.
So everything's gonna keep shifting. I drive by your house, John, to make my turns. It's just how it works in town.
All right. Have we started on the strategic plan review yet?
Well, that was where we had.
Okay, that's where, okay, gotcha. Sorry, I got it.
Yeah, it ended with Preston saying, I know you might have not have had time, happy to answer any questions, and then.
We got into the weeds, yes. So this is really helpful in preparation for the budget discussions coming up, which brings us to the next item on the agenda, which is proposed schedule for preparation 2024 fiscal year budget.
You all saw this last month. I'm just keeping it in here to make sure it's fresh in your minds. Budget's coming up. It's a great time. It's a lovely time.
Thank you for putting the budget retreat on my one weekend.
On
Not on my one weekend.
Okay.
Questions, comments, anything on this for Preston or staff?
Oh, my God.
All good. Works for me.
Look at me.
A lot of work coming up. We're getting good at it. All right. Before we go into executive session, I'll ask if there are any other committee reports. Hearing
Oh,
none.
if anybody gets, or if anyone has any ideas themselves or has any ideas of, or has anyone come up with them with ideas of what they want in the athletic park, let me know. Then we can get it to the DHM. We can
The survey's going out tomorrow.
Survey's coming out tomorrow, sweet.
love a survey. I do have one fast question before we like move on. And it's to Bo. So for the ballot initiative, I know that we are no longer as a town allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
But as Polly,
Mhm.
I'm allowed to.
Absolutely. So as an individual council member, you can go door to door, you can say, hey, you know, yes, I'm on town council, this is my personal opinion, this isn't the position of the town. You individually can contribute to any action committee that might be formed. But you have to delineate your free speech versus advocating or spending any resources on behalf of the town. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. I just wanted to make sure that I was.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
It's a good reminder.
So we can donate to PACs.
Yeah.
Okay, just in case that comes up.
Yeah, well, it's a good point because we're going to want to, some of us privately are going to want to make sure we lobby for this thing. And it's important that we all understand our roles. Thanks for asking that question. I was realizing a couple of short updates on Region 10 board. I did recently get elected chair of the executive board of Region 10, just because I don't do enough already. Interestingly, there's also questions come up because of all the work that Region 10 does as a council of governments that involve public funds. We're actually going down the road of becoming a public entity. Region 10 will be like any other public facing entity and have to meet public notice requirements and open meetings law and all of that. Just because there was too much, I think the Region 10 attorney kind of brought up that we were in a little bit of a gray area with the amount of money that Region 10 has gotten in the last decade or so for broadband and various things. And to not be a public entity and be accountable as a public entity for how that money's being spent and have our records be open. It's just a bit of a potential liability. So I think it's a good move. It's going to be interesting for staff at Region 10 to make that shift, but I told them I think it won't be that hard. And I think in my experience as an elected official all these years, I can help them navigate that a lot. And Michelle Haynes, the director, she's so capable and so amazing. I think it'll be fine, but it's an interesting transition. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I wasn't here last month, but I did attend the CC4CA conference at the beginning of June. As always, just really great to network with other municipalities and I think basically my takeaway from talking to a lot of other communities is that people are impressed with what Ridgway is pulling off, especially considering our size. We are believed to be the smallest member of CC4CA and definitely pulling our weight with some bigger communities. And so anyway, our efforts are being noticed. And as always, very excited we're a part of this and seeing some of that lobbying work being done at the state level. It's pretty exciting.
Which reminds me that Mountain Towns 2030 thing, were you going to mention that?
Go for it.
Well, just I know it's been a summer-long series of webinars and things. When we committed to spending the money, whatever the term would be, member of the process of what they're doing right now. I was hoping more of us would be attending these webinars and such. I just wondered if any of you have I thought about that, taking a look at what's going on. I know you're planning on attending the summit.
What's the next one?
This sixth one is
There was one this week, wasn't there?
this week, yeah. And that was the only one of the 6 I think I did not attend. It was about transportation.
Local efforts, or something about Boulder, yeah.
When's the summit again?
Summit is October 18th and 19th in Vale. And we discussed, the registration is now open. And so we'll talk about getting figure out who wants to attend from SAB.
It's midweek, I can't go.
Is it?
It's in Vale, yeah. And it's,
An overnighter or is it?
it's a couple days. It actually starts early morning, the 18th as well. So it would be 17th, 18th, and then home 19th. So anyway, just that, I was gonna add that in from Sustainability Advisory Board. I know John had sent out multiple times emails to all of us asking if there were things that we wanted to let them know what we've been working on. I've been in contact with Chris Steinkamp and in attending these, and I think they serve a great purpose, not just in Colorado, but across the whole West, for similar towns, smaller, larger, and really do a good job of distilling down some of there's just such a fire hose of information coming down as far as goals for CAP, climate action plan, and for our own strategic plans. And it all plays into a lot of the same stuff that Terry's working so hard on from his dual role as San Miguel guy to counselor. But yeah, there's a lot of information, and they definitely help in the conversation in how to prioritize what to do first.
Would there be any town support for lodging or anything?
Yeah.
I think we had already sent a request in through Deb, yeah. Preston's gonna,
Yeah. Reach out to myself and Deb.
Town support for dog sitting?
I'm bringing my dogs now.
When we do these kinds of things for like Colorado Creative Industry Summit and stuff like that, if enough of us go, it makes sense to like look for an Airbnb. But if we're gonna do that, we should jump on it.
ASAP, yeah, I already have some of the prices in Vale.
Yeah. great.
Dog friendly.
So just I might be able to go. I don't know yet, but thanks for reminding everybody about that. And I just encourage everybody to keep.
I won't be around and I don't have a dog anymore, so we need dogs in the house.
A moment of
Oh,
silence
you
for Sprocket.
Yeah, no, I lost Sprocket midway through my trip with my nephew. I had to put him down. It was a thing. Yeah,
So sorry for your loss.
thank you.
You lived an amazing life.
He gave
We
every
were
last
lucky
thing he
enough
had.
to
Nothing left to give.
2 months ago. Was he here?
Yeah, I brought him, I think it was the June, May or June meeting.
That was great. Here, just getting it done, play that, I guess.
All right. So I guess we're ready for the citation for the executive session. Almost. That was subtle.
We could get a motion to go into executive.
Thanks, Daniel.
We appreciate it.
4B for the purpose of receiving legal advice, and 4E for developing strategy for negotiations and or instructing negotiators regarding the purpose of water rights.
So moved.
Second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So, Krista, you need to hop off Zoom, if you're still there. Thank you. All right, looks like we're ready.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is the executive session pursuant, I'm sorry. The time is 7:27 p.m. on August 9th. For the record, I'm the town attorney. This is an executive session pursuant to 24-6-4024B for the purpose of receiving legal advice And 4E for matters subject to negotiation regarding the possible purchase of water rights. I caution each participant to confine the discussion in the executive session to the stated action. And that no formal action may occur in the executive session. At any point in the executive session, if the participant believes the discussion goes outside the proper scope of the executive session, please make it an objection. As the attorney for the town of Ridgway, it is my position that the executive session constitutes privileged attorney-client communication. Therefore, I'm recommending that no recording be kept of the executive session.
And I will. Unless there is further action requested, I'll declare us adjourned.
Boom, 8 o'clock.
Boom. 8 o'clock.
Oh, adjourned?
We're adjourned.
Sure.
Thanks for coming back to visit.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, thanks, Joanne.
You.
Like, did something weird, I don't know. Oh.
Getting ready for a.
Well, it's fish day.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what's the status? You need help?
Vote for me, not the physical vote.